So when you think of salads, a lot of us think of your typical lettuce, tomato, cucumber salad type thing that gets very boring, that you may even dread making just because it's the same few ingredients over and over again. Well, salads don't have to necessarily just be your lettuce or a few vegetables mixed together, calling it a salad, making it seem to yourself as though you're eating, per se, healthfully. Salads can be a lot of fun. Salads can incorporate a lot of colors. Salads can also incorporate a lot of different food groups. You don't have to have just vegetables in your salad to make yourself feel as though you're having a nutritious lunch within that bowl of salad. So the first salad we're going to introduce today, as I mentioned, was the maple lime triple berry quinoa salad. And I've already cooked the quinoa for you, so it's already cooked and cooled. So let me talk a little bit about the quinoa that I chose for this recipe. Many of you have heard of quinoa before. Some of you, maybe most of you, have even tried it or prepared it at home on your own. For this recipe, we're actually using the red version or the red variety of quinoa. Now there's typically 3 different types of quinoa. There's white, black, and red. Sometimes you can find in the store, you can find the multicolor or all 3 colors mixed together. But for this recipe, we specifically chose red quinoa because red quinoa is known to hold its form better and to be the best for cold salads. And this is a cold salad that you'll store in the refrigerator, and you'll be able to eat 3, 4, 5 days in a row. So having the red quinoa doesn't necessarily mean you're getting more protein or you're getting more fiber. The difference is the texture. It's a little bit more nuttier or stiff per se. So like I mentioned, it's going to hold its form and not get soggy or a softer texture as the week goes on. However, if you're thinking, well, then what's the difference? Why is white softer? What's different with white and black? Well, white is going to be the one that's softer and the one that you might want to use more for hot dishes. The black quinoa, however, is the most dense. It's the one that's going to have more protein, more fiber, and some more nutrients in it versus the other 2 colors. Now, they're all 3 going to give you the protein because they're all from a plant. They're going to give you the fiber, and they're going to give you that great nutty texture within whatever dish that you're eating. And the difference between the protein with the black versus red versus white is very insignificant. So I wouldn't suggest only using black because that's the highest in protein, because really you're going to get maybe 1 or 2 grams more than you would in a red or white variety. But I just thought I would explain the difference just briefly for you, since there are 3 types to choose from in the grocery store. So red is also colorful, right? So that's going to add some color to this dish versus maybe the white quinoa. But if you only have white, then feel free to use white. It's just going to have a softer texture. So with that being said, the quinoa was cooked, boiled, I should say, in 2 cups of water to 1 cup of dry quinoa. So it's very similar to rice. If you've ever cooked minute rice or rice on the stovetop, you typically would take 2 cups of liquid, pour it in a pan, and then put 1 cup of that dried rice or dried quinoa into the pan as well. Then you boil it on medium to low heat for about 10 minutes. And I typically just let it sit uncovered once I shut the burner off after 10 minutes and let it just sit there for another 5 minutes or so and just absorb more of that moisture. For this recipe, I encourage you to cook the quinoa in water. We know that quinoa is going to absorb the different flavors that it's cooked in. So if you're cooking the quinoa in chicken broth or beef broth or salty water of some sort, then that flavor is going to transfer then to the strawberries, the blackberries, and the blueberries, and that typically chicken and that mixed together doesn't sound very appetizing to me. So I just used water for this dish. So I'm going to start by making the dressing for the salad. Now you make the dressing when you put the whole salad together, and you want to make sure that you pour the dressing on the quinoa and mix it thoroughly together. Like I mentioned, quinoa is going to absorb the flavors that it comes in contact with. So the longer you let it sit, the more it's going to absorb the maple syrup, ginger, and lime dressing that we're going to make. So here's 2 tablespoons of pure maple syrup. I'm going to pour it in a bowl. Then we're going to do half a teaspoon of ginger. And ginger is good for aiding in digestion. It helps with nausea and stomach upset or stomach distress. So if you have ever, or if you are battling with different stomach issues that make you feel nauseated more often, thinking about utilizing more ginger is going to be a helpful spice to kind of settle your stomach a little bit more. Then we're going to squeeze the juice of 2 limes into this bowl here. But as you can see, both of these limes actually are quite firm. And we want to make sure that we're getting the best, to our ability, the most juice out of them. So I'm going to take the base of the palm of my hand and press it onto the top of the lime and just roll it around on the counter. And I'm going to do that with both limes just to get it more soft so that more of the juices will be more easily squeezed out of the limes. And I've used this trick before. So some of you may have already shared this piece of knowledge with maybe your loved one, or maybe you do this at home in your own kitchen. I can tell you when I got these groceries on Tuesday, side note, when I got these groceries on Tuesday from our Shipt shopper from a local Meijer store, these limes were as hard as golf balls. And I was thinking, oh my goodness, am I even going to be able to get enough juice out of them to use them? But I just let it sit on the counter, and they softened up in a matter of 48 hours pretty quickly. And they're even now more soft after rolling them around on the counter. So I will just slice them open and then squeeze the juices into the bowl here. And I'm hopeful that you can see the majority of the steps that I'm doing. I try to position the camera so that you can. Now citrus, that's what lime is. It's a citrus fruit, so it's an acid. The citrus fruit, lemons, limes, and oranges, or other acids like vinegars, what they do for recipes is they help to bring the flavors of all the ingredients together. So not only are you going to get the flavor of the actual citrus fruit that you're using, so lime juice, but you're also going to have even more flavor mixed together with the 3 fruits and the quinoa. And then it'll help accentuate some of the sweetness from the maple syrup and then the ginger flavor too. This salad is good for many different things. I've used it for breakfast before a few times. Just made it ahead and just took it a few days to work for breakfast. You have a balanced meal in the salad, so there's no right or wrong foods to eat at different meals, right, as long as you are having balanced meals. So quinoa is going to give you protein, because it's a plant-based protein. Quinoa is also going to give you fiber to help you stay fuller longer. Quinoa is considered a complex carbohydrate, which will then give you that immediate energy that you need. So I'm going to pour the dressing over the quinoa now. And then knowing that a balanced meal includes other food groups besides just protein, right? So now we're going to add in some different fruits. So I have blueberries, blackberries, and strawberries today. I've already washed them and sliced them as needed. So as I mix the quinoa with the dressing and now the blueberries, just to disperse all the flavors here. Blueberries are in season in Michigan in July and into August too, depending on what part of the state that you might be visiting. But you know just as well as I do, there's nothing better than freshly picked or freshly harvested fruits or vegetables, right? So that's why the Michigan summers are all about fresh produce, And so many of us feel like we can eat all this fresh produce for 6 to 8 weeks out of the year, and then the rest of the year it just doesn't taste the same when you're buying it from the grocery store. So blueberries are going to add a little bit of sweetness and fiber and a lot of antioxidants. And if you're someone that is diabetic or someone that helps take care of someone with diabetes, and you're thinking, oh, well, that has to be a lot of carbs in this recipe. If you know anything about the low glycemic index fruits, we have the blueberries and the strawberries here are considered low glycemic index, meaning you can have 1 full cup of a berry, so whether it's a combination of the 3 or just 1 cup of strawberries, you can have a combination of fruits, 1 cup of these berries for 1 serving of carbohydrates. I always get a lot of diabetes questions in classes, so I just thought I would explain that a little bit with this recipe. And then quinoa is providing you fiber and protein, so that's not going to spike your blood sugar very much. Yes, there are carbs in it, but you also have that fiber and protein that's going to help to stabilize your blood sugars. Then the last fruit we're going to add here is strawberries. Strawberries had a short season this year in Michigan because of the weather being so warm in May. But strawberry picking and canning your own jam and making your own strawberry shortcake, that's a lot of memory making in the kitchen and can provide a lot of flavor with all this natural sweetness from those fresh picked strawberries. So as you can see in this bowl here, you have a nutrient-dense salad, and it makes quite a bit. I should have had the exact amount of how much it makes. But if we look here, roughly 1 1/4, 1.5 cups of the salad is considered 1 serving. So if you utilize this for part of your breakfast meal like I had before, or maybe you're going to utilize it for dessert with your next cookout that you're having and you're going to share it with friends and family, or have it as a side dish for grilling out, or having it with lunch and having maybe a thing of cottage cheese or something else on the side, just to give yourself a little bit more nutrients if you think that 1 serving of this isn't going to fill you up. But regardless, this is a triple berry quinoa salad, and it does store very well in the fridge. So once the quinoa has absorbed all the moisture, it's done. It's not going to absorb anymore. It's not going to get super mushy. It's not going to change the texture of it after it sits in the fridge for 2 or 3 or 4 days. Typically, this stays very fresh and flavorful for you. The only thing is, if it's longer than 4 to 5 days, typically your strawberries would be the first one that would start to turn. We all know what strawberries look like when they're starting to turn, most likely. So, but like I said, in storing it in a glass container or utilizing it in glass serving dishes, if you're preparing it ahead of time for work or easy to go, meals on the go type of thing, would be optimal for you, just because glass does not absorb the flavors of other things. So you wouldn't taste what was in here before, and then what you have in after, you're not going to taste this either. So just storing it in glass is going to be just easy for you to have good flavors. All right, so that is the end of this recipe. And I was going to mention one thing, because a few people have asked me before when we've done this recipe, can they use raspberries? Well, sure, raspberries are in season too, but raspberries are a very soft berry. So when you're mixing them up with all the other ingredients, a lot of times the raspberries are going to fall apart, or they're just going to lose their texture and lose their flavor a lot quicker than the more sturdy berries like strawberries, blackberries, and blueberries. So if you wanted to use raspberries, you can go ahead and try it. I just don't, because they're such a soft berry. I'm going to clean up this recipe, and then we are going to move on to the Brussels sprout recipe.
While you're doing that, just so everyone knows, this morning, I emailed you out a also 4-page PDF or multi-page PDF document that kind of outlines the seasonality of produce in Michigan. So if you are wondering if you're going to the farmer's market this month or next month, you can see what produce items you might be able to find that are grown locally. So I hope that's helpful. I always find it really interesting to see what's available, and it's nice to be able to meet and shake the hands that are growing your food.
I agree, Katie. They spend so much time trying to make sure that their crops are harvested and they're perfect for consumption by consumers. So knowing where your food comes from is typically something that a lot of us enjoy. So for the next recipe, like I mentioned, we're doing the shaved Brussels sprout salad. And you can prepare the Brussels sprouts however you want to, per se. So if you have a food processor, you can put those whole Brussels sprouts in the food processor and pulse it to then get it to shred like this. If you have a mandolin or something similar, you can shave it yourself. Or if you're like me and you just wanted to use a sharp knife and a cutting board, we'll go ahead and do that. So there's many ways to shape the Brussels sprout down. So what I did is I just bought 1 pound of Brussels sprouts and just trimmed the ends off and finally sliced them with my knife. So when we're making this, we want to make our own dressing as well. You're going to find a pattern throughout today. Not one of these salads that I'm preparing for you has any type of store-bought dressing. A lot of them have a combination of 3 to 5 ingredients, and that's what we're going to utilize as the dressing. So you can make salads very flavorful with many different varieties of flavors and spices that you mix together in a combination as your salad dressing. So we're going to use extra virgin olive oil and apple cider vinegar as the liquid base to this dressing here. So we're going to do 1/3 cup of olive oil. And we're using extra virgin olive oil because that is very good at cold temperatures. It has a very low smoke point. So extra virgin olive oil makes great salad dressings or marinades or something similar. So I'm utilizing 2 different bottles of olive oil because one needed to be used up and I knew I wouldn't have enough in that one. So I didn't add extra. I just made sure I had a total of 1/3 cup. Then with apple cider vinegar, we're going to do 2 tablespoons of this. You want to slowly pour the vinegar into the olive oil for the emulsion factor. So it's not going to mix very well together. If you've ever mixed olive oil or an oil and a vinegar together, right? Oil and vinegar don't mix well. Then what we're also going to put into the dressing is going to be 1 chopped, or you could, if you have a garlic press or something similar, you can add that. You can utilize it too. But this is 1 clove of fresh chopped garlic. You could put more in if you prefer, kind of taste it as you go, or if you want it to be more garlicky, go ahead and put 2 or 3 cloves in it. Again, more pure maple syrup. And then 2 tablespoons of Dijon mustard. So now a lot of times salad dressings that you buy from the grocery store are going to be high in sodium, potentially higher in added sugars, which then would lead to it being higher in calories than the salad dressings that you can actually make at home. Because a lot of salad dressings at the grocery store that you would buy, especially in like the middle aisle, like the ranch dressing, the Italian dressing, Thousand Island, French, all of those have to be shelf stable because they're non-refrigerated, and then they sit on a shelf for a little while before a consumer buys them, and then we leave them in our fridge for sometimes 6 months to a year before they're all used up. So there's going to be a lot of sugar and salt added to them, just to help for preservatives to keep their shelf life longer. And typically they're going to be higher in saturated fat and cholesterol as well. So there's a lot of benefits to taking a few minutes to make your own salad dressing at home. And the last ingredient for this is we're going to add some fresh squeezed lemon juice to it. So again, another citrus fruit. This did not soften very well like the limes did. So you're going to see how much juice I can actually get from this lemon. If you didn't want to use fresh lemon juice or fresh squeezed lemon juice, you could most definitely use lemon juice that you might have in your fridge in one of those bottles that you buy from the store. There's nothing wrong with cutting corners once in a while and doing that. And you'll see with this recipe, there's no added salt here. So a lot of times when we're adding an acid, like a vinegar or a lemon juice, like I mentioned, not only does it bring the flavors together, but it also, because it does similar to what salt does, so it also allows you to not put any added salt in a recipe, because salt brings flavors together, just like an acid does. So a lot of times it's nice to use an acid in place of salt if you're watching your sodium intake or you battle with high blood pressure or some other heart disease type of an issue. All right. So our salad dressing is done. Now I couldn't find our mini whisk, or else whisking it together is going to produce probably a better consistency of it. So yes, I'm using just a spatula. However, real life, right? So sometimes when you don't have the tool that you need, you just compromise and modify it. So I'm using a spatula. However, if you have a mini whisk, you're going to find that that's going to produce a better consistency of the salad dressing. So within this Brussels sprout salad, we're going to add a half a cup of craisins or some sort of dried fruit. So if you had dried cranberries, dried craisins, maybe if all you have on hand is raisins, then go ahead. We just want it to be a half a cup of dried fruit. That's going to add some fiber. That's also going to add some sweetness to the salad as well. If you have sunflower seeds that you want to add to the salad, as the recipe calls for, perfect. I wanted to use pumpkin seeds, one, because we didn't have sunflower seeds, but I just like the color of the pumpkin seeds. There's nothing wrong with using pumpkin seeds or sunflower seeds or another type of seed similar to that. They're all going to give you the protein that we're looking for from the seed. And in a quarter cup of sunflower or pumpkin seeds, excuse me, there's about 9 grams of protein. So we're putting half a cup in here. Not that you're going to get the whole half a cup or quarter cup in your one serving, but still it's just adding some plant-based protein here to your salad. Then it's going to give it that crunch, because so many of us like crunch when we think of salad, so you get the majority of the crunch from the pumpkin seeds. Then the next thing we need to add is our chopped apple. So we're going to share the cutting board with the lemon mess here. The apple has already been washed, so if anyone was wondering, oh no, why is she just going to cut into an apple? I've already washed it beforehand. Now I'm just going to, if you have an apple core, one of those tools that's easy to just slice the apple and it takes the core out of the middle, that would work perfect for this too and save a little bit of time. If you have to use a knife, go for it. If you don't like the peel and you want to take the peel off, that's fine. You can do that. Just know that the peel of the apple is where the majority of the fiber and a lot of the nutrients from the apple is going to be located. And the peel of the apple is also going to help the apple keep its shape as time goes on throughout the day. Once the apple mixes with the vinegar And the lemon juice, however, with the dressing, that's going to help to slow down the browning of the apple. If you add an acid of some sort to an apple once it's cut, then you're going to slow down the browning process. Because as soon as oxygen hits the apple, then it starts to turn brown. I'm sure you know exactly what I'm talking about, especially if you have kids. You ever cut them up an apple because they wanted apple slices, and then it starts turning brown because they didn't eat it fast enough, and then they're complaining that their apple doesn't taste good anymore or looks funny, right? Because so many of us eat with our eyes first. So this Brussels sprout salad, I wouldn't suggest it as a main entree. This would be a good complement to other parts of your meal, whether it's lunch or supper. Or if you wanted to add a little bit more protein because you wanted this to be your main option for a meal, you could always add maybe some chickpeas to it to have more protein, or if you had grilled chicken breast or tuna fish, something similar, that would all pair well with this too. I'm going to pour the dressing on here. And Brussels sprouts, many of us think of Brussels sprouts as a cooked vegetable, or you have to cook it for it to taste good, right? Well, yes, roasting it does make it taste better because it accentuates some of the natural sweetness of it when it's roasting. If you ate a whole Brussels sprout and you just pop that in your mouth like you would with a grape or something similar, oh yeah, it's most likely going to have a more bitter taste and it's going to be less palatable for you. But when you shred it up and you use it as, per se, your lettuce base for different slaws or salads, then it has a whole different flavor because you only get a little bit at a time. And then when it's shredded, it's even like a better texture for you. So you'd be surprised what this tastes like when it's shredded, mixed together with all the different ingredients. But beware, for those that might not know, Brussels sprouts are considered what we call cruciferous vegetable, meaning they're a gas-producing vegetable. So if you eat too many Brussels sprouts at one time, you might have a stomachache, or you just might not have a pleasant evening ahead of you if you are hanging out with friends or family. So again, everybody tolerates vegetables at a different amount anyway. So if you are experimenting with vegetables like that, then just be aware that Brussels sprouts are a gas-producing vegetable. But in this bowl, we have plant-based proteins from the sunflower seeds or the pumpkin seeds, whichever you choose to use. We have a lot of fiber from the dried fruit, the apple, and the Brussels sprouts. Then I added Parmesan cheese on top just to give it a little bit of garnish and a little bit more flavor as well. So here we have our Brussels sprout salad. Let me transition to our third and final recipe.
Sarah, that looks really good. I love all the colors and how creative you were with using the Brussels sprouts in that way. I'm noticing with the salad dressings and stuff, like half the ingredients for these salads are for the dressings. If someone wanted to make a batch of dressing that they could use for several salads ahead of time, would you store it in the fridge or would you recommend storing that in the pantry?
So if you are making a homemade salad dressing, typically, depending on the ingredients, you would want to store them in the fridge with just to extend the shelf life. So I would suggest putting it in a mason jar and then putting all your ingredients that way, because a lot of times if you're making a homemade dressing, you're going to double or triple a recipe, or it's going to have a lot bigger ingredients or a lot more amounts, a lot more volume of each ingredient to put in the recipe, so you'd want to store it in some sort of glass container. So a mason jar is going to be helpful. Then that way you can just shake it up, put the lid on tight, and then shake it up that way. But if you're putting fresh herbs in your dressing, like we're going to with the last salad, then definitely you're going to want to store it in the fridge. But if it's something that it's olive oil and vinegar and maybe a couple of dried spices, then sure, that can stay in your pantry. But be aware if you're using the fresher ingredients, then you're definitely going to want to store that in the fridge. Now this recipe is probably one of my favorite salad recipes that I've worked with here in the kitchen over the years because it has one of my favorite words in the title, rainbow. As a dietitian, or I guess a lot of people think as a dietitian you want everyone to eat their fruits and vegetables. Well, one of my favorite sayings is to eat through the rainbow or eat a rainbow of colors, because believe it or not, as you can't really see all of the ingredients thus far, but we have carrots, so orange. We have halved cherry tomatoes or quartered cherry tomatoes, so red. Then I chopped up a yellow bell pepper. Then I have roughly 1.5 cups or so of shredded red cabbage. I just got a red cabbage head and just sliced it up and then chopped it up more finely for the salad. The other colors we're going to put in here is green and then white, but the white's coming from cheese. It's not coming from the vegetables. But this is a rainbow chopped salad. So with every color of the rainbow, you can get different varieties of fruits and vegetables from that color. And every color provides you with different types and different amounts of antioxidants. And it's important for humans to consume antioxidants from fruits and vegetables and whole grains to help keep our immune system strong, to help decrease our blood pressure, to help decrease inflammation within our body, to help decrease our risk of developing cancer, because antioxidants actually act as a neutralizer. So within our body, we have healthy cells, we have damaged cells, and then we have what I call, just to help with explanation, enemy cells. So these enemy cells float around in our body and try to destroy our healthy cells and to cause even more damage to our already damaged cells, if that makes sense. When you consume antioxidants from your different fruits and vegetables, the antioxidant properties of these fruits and vegetables actually neutralize or stop those enemy cells from damaging our healthy cells. So they provide a barrier for our healthy cells so that they don't get further damage from those enemy cells in our body. I could go into a whole chemistry science lesson about oxidative stress, but I will just stop there. So just to know, eating through the rainbow is going to be very beneficial to keep your healthy cells healthy. And as you can see as well from today, not one salad that Katie and I talked about preparing for you guys has a lettuce base to it. So we have quinoa, we have Brussels sprouts, and now we have kale. So kale, some people might consider kale a lettuce, but when I think of lettuce, I think of iceberg lettuce or romaine lettuce or something typical to that nature. Kale is a leafy green, so it's full of antioxidants and fiber. It also is going to give you some iron. It's going to help with your vitamin K, if that's something that you're looking to get more of. And one thing I like about kale, especially if it's very fresh, is that it typically will just slide right off the stem. So instead of standing here and plucking it piece by piece, if it's fresh and firm, then you can just push the kale leaves right off the stem. That makes it easier for you when you're preparing something with a kale dish or something that you need kale for. Kale can be bitter if ate straight up raw like this. Some of us have probably tried that before and you know what I'm talking about. So what you want to do to help kale get rid of the bitterness, especially if you're planning to eat it raw, is to massage it, per se, in some sort of dressing. So within today's dressing, it's going to, for this recipe, we're going to mix together white wine vinegar, some olive oil, and some pepper. And if you wanted to add a dash of salt, feel free. I'm just going to finish up taking the kale off the stems. That one didn't work as well as all the other ones did. And in the grocery store, you can buy kale in a bunch like this, still stemmed, or you can buy it de-stemmed, already chopped and ready for use. A secret about the already chopped kale, a lot of times they chop up the stem as well. So you're going to buy this bag of what you think is easy to use kale, ready to use kale, but then the stem is still going to be within the leaves a lot of times. So just really read the packaging carefully on the kale if you're trying to buy it already washed and ready for use. And I'm just going to chop it up a little bit more so it's in more bite-sized pieces for our salad here today. I'm going to transfer it to this bowl. All right, so we have the base of the salad as kale. So roughly 2 cups of kale is what the recipe calls for. This is more like 3 cups of kale just because I used the whole bunch just for class today. Then what we're going to do then is going to make our own dressing. I like to massage the kale before I put all the other ingredients in it, just to give kale a few minutes to soak up some of the dressing to make it a little bit more tender and less bitter for when you finish the recipe. So we're going to use white vinegar. I have white wine vinegar. So a 1/4 cup of that and a 1/4 cup of oil. There's still a little bit in this one. Another benefit that I like with olive oil is that it is full of heart-healthy fats. So it's full of those unsaturated fatty acids that our body really needs and desires to have a healthy heart and a healthy cardiovascular system. It helps to decrease our total cholesterol, and it increases our good cholesterol. It also helps to decrease inflammation. So say you're battling high blood sugars, or maybe you're battling high blood pressure, or you've had high cholesterol for so long. Well, with those types of issues going on, your arterial tissue or your veins in your body are going to be inflamed. They're angry, they're upset with you because your blood pressure or your blood sugar or your cholesterol levels are so high. So when you include heart-healthy fats from things like olive oil or avocados or walnuts or pumpkin seeds like we put in that recipe over there, chia seeds, ground flaxseed, salmon, the list goes on. Those heart-healthy fats are going to help to decrease that inflammation to make your arterial walls healthier per se and more feelings of normalcy versus that inflamed state that they could be in. We're going to put some black pepper, and you could use a dash of salt if you want to. I'm not going to for this recipe, but it's completely up to you if you wanted to. I'm not using it because we already have a vinegar here, so the vinegar is going to help to marry those flavors, and the less added salt in recipes, the better.
Sarah, we did have a question in the chat. One of our participants is wondering, is there an obvious difference taste-wise between the different types of vinegar, or are they all fairly interchangeable?
There is an obvious taste difference between a lot of the different vinegars. Like balsamic vinegars are going to be more similar to I guess we could compare it to like a red wine almost. Not that I'm not saying go drink red wine, but balsamic vinegars almost look like a red wine. So they have more of that bitter taste, more of a sour taste to them. Some balsamic vinegars do. You can get different varieties of them. But if you have like a red wine vinegar, then obviously that's going to be made with red grapes. So a little bit taste difference than if you have the white wine vinegar made with another type of grapes. We also have available to us rice vinegar. Rice vinegar is made from fermented rice. So that type of vinegar is good for different cultures, like from Chinese or Japanese cuisine. They use rice vinegar in those. And gosh, there's so many different vinegars out there. But yes, they all taste different. So if you ever get a chance to taste them, sorry, my screen keeps panning out on me. Places like Horrocks or other stores like that actually allow you to taste test different vinegars before you buy them. Because you don't want to walk through Meijer and spend $8 or so on a big bottle of vinegar to find out when you get home, oh my goodness, I didn't even like that vinegar. Why would I want a whole bottle of it? So I would suggest that you go on a vinegar tour at a store similar to Horrocks and see which ones you like. Because some are going to be sweeter than the others, some are going to be more bitter, some are better for marinades, some are better for salad dressings, some are better for just drizzling on different items too, and having them just by themselves, not mixing them with anything. So there's a lot to know about vinegars. So that was a great question. All right, so I've massaged the kale with another spatula here with the salad dressing that I prepared. So now it's time to just layer the ingredients. So I'm going to start with the purple cabbage. So we have green and purple. Then I'm going to do carrots, since that's another sturdy vegetable. Layer that on top of the purple. Then we'll do bell pepper, the yellow bell pepper next. Then we'll finish it off with our cherry tomatoes. So I don't know how well you can see this, but it's beautifully colored thus far. We're going to get the cutting board back out, and we're going to add our green scallion, and then our mozzarella balls, and then the basil. So the basil is our herb that's going to add a lot of flavor to the salad. It's going to add a lot of flavor to the salad, along with a lot more antioxidants. Basil is known for helping to decrease blood pressure. Basil also contains a essential oil within the leaves, and that essential oil can aid with helping to decrease cholesterol. And that's actually where the antioxidants are going to be found too. All right, so here's the scallions.
Fire alarm testing now in progress. Fire alarm testing now in progress. Fire alarm testing now in progress.
Does anyone grow their own herbs at home? I can't know if you're saying yes or no. So just answer me. Does anyone grow their herbs at home? It's fun to have your own little herb garden or different planters of herbs, because then you can pick herbs whenever you need them for a recipe. So here's a basil plant. So when you're at home and needing some basil for a recipe, all you need to do is pluck some of these leaves off of here, and they actually then will grow back over time. So you'll always have those fresh herbs available to you at your fingertips. You just need to make sure that you're watering them and giving them appropriate sunlight so that they produce for you. Then I'm using some kitchen shears to cut this herb up. as we're adding it to this dish. You could use a knife if you wanted to, but kitchen shears are somewhat easier if you have access to them. Our last ingredient here is going to be our mozzarella pearls. And I'm just going to add the whole package. Again, this is going to store well in the fridge in a glass container. So if you wanted to utilize it for your lunches through the week, if you had a potluck coming up or a dinner gathering, this salad would be great for that. Not only would it be very flavorful because of all the different combinations of textures and flavor here, but it would also be a conversation starter, right? Because how many people can say that they made a dish with this many colors in it? But again, storing it in an airtight container in the fridge, and you'd be able to eat off of this salad for the majority of the week, 4 to 5 days, most likely. Unless there's more than just 1 or 2 of you eating the salad, then you might find that it's gone sooner than that. But regardless, with a homemade dressing and all of these fresh ingredients, because tomatoes are fresh right now in a lot of gardens. We have spinach. Spinach isn't in this recipe, but a lot of the different greens that people grow, like your lettuces, your kales, your spinach, that's all coming into time for you to pick and harvest it currently. All your bell peppers are coming in season. So the majority of all the ingredients that you have here in this bowl could be freshly picked within your neighborhood. Not to mention all the fiber that it's going to contain too. So I did mix it up just to show you what it looked like all mixed together. Not as pretty when it's not layered, but you can kind of see how it all will transpire for you. So that was the rainbow chopped salad. Are there any questions or anything, Katie? Any more?
Not right now. We have a couple people who've grown herbs, so that's always fun to see and hear about. I was going to ask, so with the salads that you prepared today, I know that like we could add chickpeas or pasta, or even like, what are your suggestions for adding like protein? If we wanted to make this like a standalone meal and prep, like if I'm cooking for one and I want to meal prep for the week and I want to make one of your salads, how can I increase the protein in the salad?
So for all 3 of those, you could increase the protein by adding more nuts or more seeds of your choice. So that would be a good way. You could add the chickpeas, like Katie already said. I think I've killed that stone there. I keep talking about chickpeas. You could grill up chicken breast ahead of time. So if you were trying to get 5 meals out of it, then you could have a 2 to 3 ounce cooked size of chicken breast and put that on top of the rainbow chopped salad or the Brussels sprout salad. I've not tried chicken on top of or mixed together with the quinoa berry salad, but by all means you could have it on the side. Or if you're just not into animal protein at all, you could try cottage cheese on the side, or hard-boiled eggs would be another good one that you could incorporate. I'm trying to think. Tuna fish might be a good one in the rainbow chopped salad, or even the Brussels sprout salad if you like the consistency or taste of tuna fish. So there's a lot of different varieties that you could add to it. But yeah, those are all my suggestions. Am I missing one that might be a very common one? I think nuts or beans would be pretty common for those. So yeah, you just wouldn't be able to add peanut butter. I don't think peanut butter would be a good protein to add to any of those salads. It'd be a different taste. Avocado wouldn't add protein, but it would add heart-healthy fats. And we know that avocados are high in fat. Fat helps to keep us fuller longer too. So that's going to add more satiety to a meal if you have more heart-healthy fats there. So adding avocado slices to the Brussels sprouts or the rainbow chopped salad, that would be something else to complement with the protein just to help stay fuller longer. All right, and the last recipe, I'm not going to prepare for you. We're just going to talk about briefly. I think I just looked at the time. I think I have a few more minutes still. So the last recipe is titled the Chickpea, Barley, and Zucchini Ribbon Salad. Now, one thing I like about this recipe is, one, it's one way to use all that garden fresh zucchini so many of us get.
Has been completed.
We always,
Fire testing has been completed. Fire testing has been completed.
sorry, there was an announcement overhead. With zucchini, that's very prevalent in so many people's gardens. Or you plant 1 or 2 plants of zucchini thinking, I only want a few for myself to make X, Y, and Z. This will be enough. 2 plants will be plenty. Well, then you end up getting so many zucchinis just from 2 or 3 plants that you're trying to give it away, right? So this is one recipe.
Emergency department. Tier 1 stroke, emergency department. Tier 1 stroke, emergency department.
This is one recipe that's more of a complete meal in one recipe. Very similar to this quinoa salad that I made earlier at the start of the webinar. So what you do is you're going to take a spiralizer. I don't know how many of you have experience with utilizing one of these types of kitchen tools. To get your zucchini spiraled or to make it look similar to a noodle, you would use one of these tools and you would place the zucchini in here, cut off both ends, and then you would just push it along, and then the zucchini, once it's spiralized or noodled, would come out over here on this end. Then you want to chop up the zucchini so that you don't get 10-foot long zucchini noodles, because it does happen. Place it in a bowl, and then cook up some barley, which barley is considered a whole grain. It's going to give you a lot of fiber to help keep you fuller longer and to stabilize those blood sugars. And it's a good source of immediate energy from the carbohydrates it contains. Something else you're going to add to the zucchini is going to be chickpeas. I would recommend rinsing the chickpeas off under cold running water in a colander before putting it in a bowl. But the chickpeas is going to add protein. Then you would make your own dressing out of some lemon juice and olive oil. You're also going to, there was one other ingredient. Oh, vinegar, goodness. So you're going to mix the vinegar together, and you can put fresh mint leaves in there along with feta cheese to give it more flavor. And the fresh mint obviously is another herb, which is going to add a lot of antioxidants into the salad as well. But that is more of a complete meal because you have the protein that you need from the chickpeas, and you have vegetable servings there from the zucchini, and then you also have the carbohydrate source there from the barley along with the fiber. So that's more of a complete meal to ensure that you have all the nutrients you need and don't have to complement with other items to be put together. So I hope you all have enjoyed today's webinar and enjoyed the 4 recipes. And each recipe has different produce items in there that I'm sure you can get your hands on from your neighbor's garden or your own garden or the produce stand on your way home. So let me know if you end up making any of these recipes, and I'd love to hear some feedback from you on which ones you enjoyed and which ones you really didn't. So thank you for having me, Katie. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Thank you for everyone else for joining us and for interacting with today's cooking class on summer salads. We are planning another cooking demo for later this fall, so keep your eyes peeled for that. And we'll have some other wellness webinars in August and September as well. So thank you again, Sarah. Those were great. Really excited to be able to try those and to swap out some of my ingredients for some different ones that don't come as naturally to me. So thank you for sharing those tips with us.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you guys. Have a great day.